right, day 3. Very well done. It's exciting to be here with you. This is a good day. This is an interesting day, I think. And so I'm looking forward to getting started. So I'll dive right into it. One reminder, remember, if you need to take a look at the syllabus or you want to have a closer look at the grading scale and what we're actually doing there, please always know that you can look at the formal course syllabus. It's available right here. It'll give you all the information that you need. You can also always email me, so no stress there. All right, so let's dive right into day 3. So today we're going to look at the kinds of funding opportunities that are available to teachers, schools, educational nonprofits, and related programs or projects. It is key to know where the money comes from. That's kind of an important thing, and what the best fit between a funder's agenda and the mission or vision of your school or nonprofit, whatever it is. So given that background, we're going to achieve the task of understanding what types of funders exist and where or how to look for them, and then how to discern which funders are good matches for your organization or idea. This is really important, and quite frankly, finding the funder is maybe a third of the battle. I think 2/3 of the battle is finding a funder that's a good match for what your organization is doing or your nonprofit is doing and what the funder wants to do, right? Because you're looking for that fit. That's a really important part of this whole process. So as a result, excuse me, there are going to be a couple of modules, one shockingly titled Finding Funders. And you're going to start by reading a couple of chapters out of Howlett and Bork, chapter 4 and 5, on identifying potential funders and then deciding how to fund your project. You'll see that this is one of the longest chapters you will read out of Howlett and Bork. Identifying potential funders means that you have to understand the different sources of funding. So where does the money come from is a really important idea. And as you'll find out from this reading and from this video and the other things that you're doing in this module, there are categories of funders that are important to know about. We've talked a little bit in previous days about foundations. We've talked, or you've read about funding agencies that are attached to government at the national level as well as at the state or local level. There are also other sorts of special interest groups that might have funding available, and a whole host of others, which you will find out about in these chapters. So figuring out which of those areas of funders might be the most likely to have the best fit for your funding need and your organization's mission or goal is going to be the trick here. You're also going to watch this video from the Grant Writing for Teachers series, looking at different kinds of funding sources. It's very quick. You'll see that it goes very quickly. So if you're a teacher and you're thinking about getting funding for something, this is a good place to start, or a good maybe additional bump for you. And then finally, there's also a short video here on how to find grants specifically geared towards teachers. There are often things available for teachers that might be a little different than others. Excuse me. And then one of the longest videos you'll have from the Grant Writing for Teachers group is actually an interview with Linda Mason. She's a grant officer at the University of Oklahoma, where these videos come from, and she'll be talking to you about ways to find and select funding sources. So once you've looked at these different readings and videos, I want you to look at this just for practice. Again, just for practice is always optional. There's nothing you have to turn in here. No one will know if you don't do this except for you. But I do encourage you to do this. Take 15 minutes and think about how different types of funders, whether they're government or corporate or foundation or union or whatever, might have different motivations and priorities. I'll just be honest, when I'm looking for funding, one of the biggest challenges for me is finding a funder that is going to be interested and fit with what I'm trying to accomplish, either in my organization or for my project or program. It's kind of a trade-off between how much, or a negotiation, maybe that's a better way of saying it, or a compromise between what my ideal vision is for whatever I need the money for, and what the funder is willing to put their money for. And the trick is to merge those two. Where does my vision fit with their mission? And how do we make that mesh? And understanding that there are particular agendas that are associated with each of these funding agencies is really important. So think about the kinds of agendas that the government might have, or government entities might have, related to your particular issue or topic, or your research idea, or your own project that you're trying to implement. Think about how politics influences the likelihood that that will be funded. Same thing here for corporate or for family foundation. They're often going to have a specific targeted interest that they're willing to fund. And it usually has something to do with what the corporation or what the foundation's family members are already involved in. So finding out what their motivations are and priority will be huge. Then we're going to move on to Module 2, Finding the Best Fit. You're going to read Finding a Suitable Funding Match from Hallett and Bork. And then you're going to do another Just for Practice, assuming you have the time, where you're going to brainstorm which types of funders might be the most appropriate for your organization or idea, and which types of funders might be the most appropriate for the organizations and ideas your classmates presented in their intro videos. So you're going to think about not only what type of funder might be the best for my idea, but what type might be best for the other ideas that I've heard from my classmates. This is really important because it gets you in the mindset of understanding what the agendas are of these different types of funding organizations or agencies, and how that fits or meshes or complements the ideas that you and others have. And the reason why I'm asking you to brainstorm both about your own idea as well as those of others is because often we're very close to our own ideas. And if we can get past our own ideas and start thinking about others' ideas and others' agendas, then sometimes we have sort of that third person perspective, which allows us a bit more objectivity, and we can think more, maybe the word is rationally or reasonably, about the fit between ideas for what the funding is needed for and what the organization wants to do and what the funder wants to do. Rather than just sort of being mired in the fact that you know your idea is right, by golly, and funders should bend to your will. So it really is a compromise, and understanding that will be important. By the way, this is just for practice. This is essentially what you're going to be doing for your assignments. Then I'd like for you to read an article out of the MPQ Nonprofit Quarterly about 5 ways to get unsolicited proposals heard. We're going to talk, and you've probably already seen in the previous day's content, that a lot of funding has to do with responding to calls for proposals, or for if there are open calls for funding requests from foundations or other sorts of funding agencies. But what about if you have an idea and you need money and there isn't an open call, or there isn't a specific agenda from a corporation or another type of funding agency that addresses your unique need? How do you get an unsolicited proposal in front of people who might potentially fund it? This is an important topic, and that's what we're going to talk about, or that's what you're going to read about with Cohen. Then we have this TED Talk. It's about a 16-minute talk from a guy named Ruben Mays. There he is. And he's talking about Fundraising 101, where he's going to also very clearly address some of the issues related to fitting your funding needs with the funding organization or the funding agency's needs. And I think it's a great, very practical and experience-based talk. And then finally, there's a very brief introduction, not finally, next there's a very brief introduction from our folks at Grant Writing for Teachers about how to crowdsource. It's another way of thinking about funding that doesn't necessarily point to one particular organization or agency, but says, I have an idea, I'm going to put it out there, and here's a platform in which other people might take a look and choose to fund me if they wish. All right, so a couple more from Grant Writing for Teachers, one from a teacher herself who's been funded, and one looking at one of the crowdsourcing platforms called Donors Choose, which I think will help you get some idea about how funding works and how that fit works. So finally, the last just for practice before you move into the application activities If you can brainstorm a list of organizations in your community that might seek external funding or agencies. So who is going to need money? And when I say in your community, that could be your geographic community. So I'm sitting here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. That could be organizations in Bethlehem. Or if you are, let's say you're affiliated with an international nonprofit or non-governmental organization. Um, your community would be INGOs. It would be the groups of INGOs that address similar issues or work with a particular target population, that sort of thing. So don't think about community as only geographically bounded. And once you've brainstormed a list of organizations in that community, then look at the organization's website and see what kind of grant makers are funding them. It's usually posted very prominently on websites because, one, they want to make the grant makers happy, and two, it shows that they're actually getting work done and where that money's coming from, and that's a legitimizing component for a lot of organizations. So look for those grant makers because those might be the grant makers that would also fund you. They're already funding work that's being done in your community, so to speak. So the likelihood of them funding the kind of work that you're doing is much higher than just a cold call or a random discovery about a particular funding agency. You can also use the criteria listed in the Look for Common Ground in Howlett and Bork, Chapter 6, to think about potential matches. And that's going to be important because your really only application activity other than posting a comment in the Leave a Reply section is to write a funder fit memo to me in which you identify 2 to 3 potential funders or funding opportunities worth pursuing for your organization or idea. When I say funding opportunities, I'm talking about, or funders, I'm talking about specific opportunities where there's money available and you can apply for it, or funders that are soliciting proposals or have provided money for similar organizations in your community in previous cycles or years. I'd like for you to include justifications for why these 2 to 3 potential funders would be a good fit for your organization or idea, and draw your rationales from the funder's mission statements or previously funded projects or direct requests for proposals. That's what an RFP is. But you need to use that kind of evidence to show that there is a fit between what this funder or funding organization or funding opportunity provides and what you want to do. It's your job to draw this rationale using evidence from mission statements, previously funded projects, or direct RFPs. If you find other sources of data, great. And then I want you to identify, or maybe another way to say this is to rank the 2 to 3 potential funders presented. Excuse me. And so that it's clear which is the best fit and which is the worst fit according to your criteria, and then are your justifications, and then identify 5 opportunities to cultivate a relationship with this best fit funder. This is when you're going to be looking back at your readings and at the videos to see how it's recommended that you develop these opportunities and cultivate this relationship with funding organizations or agencies. Of course, email me your funder fit memo by the end of the day for feedback. Post some comments in the Leave a Reply section at the bottom of the page, and then also make sure that you're preparing for the coming days. Take a look at the required sections for the grant proposal you will turn in at the end of this course. The reason why I want you to do this is because as you go through these daily assignments, some of them, for example, the statement of need from yesterday, is one of the required sections for the final product for this course. So you are actually getting the opportunity to prepare your final assignment on a day-to-day basis throughout this very fast course. So maybe take 10-15 minutes today, maybe more, to revise the statement of need section using the feedback that I gave you on it, and make revising the sections that go into your final grant proposal a daily habit. This way, when you get to the end of the course, it's not a surprise, you aren't underprepared, you can quite frankly sort of just put the different sections together, make sure that they're thoroughly embedded with one another. In other words, they transition well, it looks like the same person wrote them all, that sort of thing. It's going to save you so much time at the end and so much effort at the end of the course if you just take a little bit of time to work on it as we go along. Remember, work ahead as much as possible, but go in order day by day, working from the top of each day's page to the bottom. All right. Of course, ask me any questions you might have. And I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.